First Flame, Act 1, Chapter 1. At 16, the human prince Sterling Thornheart found the royal stables had become his secret sanctuary, not for the horses, but for the young orc girl who worked there. Her name was Kessa Ironheart, the daughter of an orc lord. She preferred the common tongue translation, Ironheart, for her last name. Her raven black hair was always scented with jasmine. She worked as a farrier, which according to orcs was an honorable trade. She lived here about an hour's horse ride from her father's village. He wondered why she had moved to the palace to be the only orc living in Whitford. Her green skin was illuminated by dappled sunlight through the tree overhead. Her dark hair was tied back by a simple strip of leather, a few strands escaping to frame her gently rounded face. Her golden eyes sparkled when she laughed, and her full lips curved in a shy smile that made his head spin. She was striking, but carried herself in an innocent, girlish way. She had just finished the final hoof of the horse and looked at her work with satisfaction. The leather patch on the bottom of the horseshoe was perfectly aligned, and the nails were perfectly hammered in and clipped. She dropped the hoof and patted the horse as she led it out to the exercise yard. Sterling sighed. He wanted to talk to her. He wanted to walk down from behind the hay, take her hand, and tell her she was the most beautiful girl he'd ever seen. Such an exotic girl, but a prince and an orc maiden, it would be frowned upon, to say the least. He had heard people talk disparagingly about orcs. Some noble folk thought that they were overly warlike and proud. He thought, though, father's good friend is an orc, they can't be so bad. And that afternoon, as he watched her hammering through forge fire smoke and as the quenched horseshoe hissed in the water, he thought he alone could change it all. Just as he was about to talk to her, a page found him beside a haystack. Prince Sterling, the boy said, bowing, your father, the king, requests you in his study. He acknowledged the page and, glancing back at the orc girl, followed him reluctantly. Soon. I will talk to her soon, he thought resolutely. Just then a dark shadow passed over him, and the sun dimmed for a moment. There was a sudden thunderclap which startled the prince as he looked up to see a shadow recede into the clouds. I'm seeing things, he thought, and considered it was a rogue thunderclap, which happened from time to time in the spring when rain threatened. As Sterling entered the study, the smell of leather-bound books and tea filled the air. His father sat behind his oak desk, sunlight catching silver in his black beard as the hearth fire burned behind him. His mother, Seraphina, sipped mint tea and chatted with the others with a smile that made him feel at home. What have you been up to, son? She asked. Out at the stables again? He gulped and tried not to blush. Oh, yes, just looking at my horse, making sure he's ready for the next ride. Sterling was interrupted by his half-brother making whooshing sounds. Brother, he said, while grabbing the wooden sword he'd been painting, look at this dragon I painted. Sterling held it level and looked at his brother's handiwork. What a great dragon, he said. You could work at the Artist Guild if you wanted. Corin's tail swished as he accepted the compliment. But then he smiled suspiciously. You're not just saying that to come back later and say it's horrible. Sterling wanted to tease him, but Mother might have disapproved. No, I mean it this time. Corin laughed and shoved Sterling's shoulder. I'll take whatever I can get. Sterling looked down and saw some blue paint on Corin's tail. You should wash that before it dries, he said, pointing at the splotch of paint that had dripped on his red furred tail. Corin's mother, soft black tipped fox ears, twitched. She had been sipping tea and cream with her russet tail curled neatly around her tail. Oh, no, she said with some concern. We'll have to get some warm water and soap on that. Corin put the sword back on the table and said, Okay, Mother, I'll be right back. He's such a good boy, said Queen Aeloria, who was helping Sterling's half-sister with the wand-lighting exercise. Aeloria was an elven noble from the northern land of Moonvale Enclave. She swished the blue-green lighted tip in the air while Liora followed with her own lighted wand. Both were willowy and frankly elegant ladies, always pleasantly smiling. Well, Sis was grouchy at times, but maybe because he tossed a frog at her or Corin pulled her hair. Sister Liora paused her wand, practiced, and said, Won't you join us for some light magic, she said. With the lilt, Mother has your wand on Father's desk. Sterling walked to the desk to grab his wand. Hello, Papa. The king answered heartily, Sterling, my boy. Listen, we're going to Swift Hollow, his father announced, eyes twinkling. The Foxkin are holding their spring festival. They'll have a feast of rabbit, berry tarts, and jam with bread and mead. He paused dramatically. They could make a dwarf weep. He opened his eyes with a wink. Thought we'd all enjoy it. Lady Mira, Corin's mother, swished her tail and said, "We can sit with the Swiftclaws and Mummy and Daddy Redtail." Sterling, Corin, and Liora all nodded their heads vigorously. Everyone was getting hungry and couldn't wait to go. At the festival at Swift Hollow, guards unlatched and swung the heavy wooden gates open wide as the royal carriage with 3 wives, 3 children, and the king rode through the portcullis gateway. Sterling chatted with Liora about the new playhouse at Riverbend Crossing. As the family crossed the dry moat, Corin gripped the windowsill and looked out the window at the townsfolk going about their daily lives. Fresh air blew in as noon turned to early evening. The clatter of horse hooves could be heard thudding in front and back of the carriage. 40 soldiers accompanied the royals. Corin loved to see the highly disciplined royal guard in their blue and white uniforms ride along with them. Swift Hollow lay only a short ride away, nestled in a fertile land where the woods gave way to meadows dotted with berry orchards. Even from the road he could smell wood smoke and honey cakes baking. As he approached, he could hear the distant thump of drums and the bright trill of foxkin flutes. This village was where Corin's mother, Queen Mira, came from. She was a graceful red foxkin woman. She had softly waving auburn hair, smiling blue eyes, and a deep red tail tipped in white. Her maiden name was appropriately Redtail. She had married King Arlen for love. She was his first love. From their union came a whole fox village. She had requested her people be given land to the south of the palace, and there they were, thriving just a few minutes' ride from the palace. The village, as they approached, was made up of golden brown thatched cottages along winding lanes. Red, green, and yellow painted doors were propped open. Foxkin with little bushy tails darted between horses' legs to wave at the carriage and all the soldiers. Banners of crimson and gold fluttered overhead. Long tables were filled with steaming platters of aromatic roasted rabbit glazed with sweet berry sauce, fresh bread, and platters of fruit tarts of strawberry, blackberry, and cloudberry, topped with whipped cream. Corin descended from the carriage and ran and skidded to a stop in front of Prince Sterling. His bushy tail was bottle-brushed and with excitement. His ears perked high. His bright green eyes glinted with mischief. "Sterling," he yelled, his voice cracking awkwardly, "race you to the ribbon circle. Loser eats a slug." Corin took off, darting through startled villagers, tail streaming like a banner. He had spun backwards, grinning wide. "Can't catch me," he called, then laughed as he ran between ribbon dancers whirling with colorful silk ribbons on sticks overhead. He turned and promptly tripped over his own tail in front of some giggling fox girls. He popped back up with red cheeks and smiled sheepishly. Moments later, he teased 2 younger red-tail cousins into a game of chase, and they became a blur of red and black tails. Sterling's father was soon swept away by Foxkin Lord Reynard Swiftclaw, who clapped him on the back and offered him a mug of beer. Hoppy-smelling foam drifted down the side as he toasted to their friendship. His mother's and Liora, his sister, vanished into a circle of laughing Foxkin ladies. Sterling wandered toward the music, drawn like a moth. The square had been cleared for dancing, and lamplighters stood by, ready to light the oil lamps around the patios and the candles on the tables. The sun, which hadn't quite set, cast warm light on the ring of villagers clapping in time. In the center spun a girl, in a dress the colors of fresh flame, layers of silk that caught every breeze and flared around her like red, orange, and yellow petals. Her hair was a torrent of fiery red, loose and wild, with sparks of copper and gold. A matching red tail swayed in perfect rhythm, her ears tipped with soft black tufts. She danced with the long red and green ribbon twirling overhead so they traced arcs against the sky. Her laughter rang out, bright and unforced, the kind that made the whole square feel lighter. When she spun, her green eyes flashed with joy, and for one breathless moment they met his. She blushed with half-lidded eyes, smiling, and kept dancing. His heart slipped out of rhythm while he lingered at the edge of the circle, half hidden by a banner pole, watching with the confidence in her steps and the way she followed the music in perfect time. He didn't yet know her name or that she was Lord Reynard's daughter. All he knew was that her attention, brief as it had been, had unsettled him, and he could not look away. The music swelled. The ribbons snapped overhead like banners. The smell of smoke, good food, and lavender from her hair filled the air around him. The sun was setting, so lamps all around the square were being lit by lamplighters. A bonfire was lit in the middle. Amid laughter and lamplight, he stopped looking anywhere else, captivated by the whirling red-haired fox girl who seemed to see only him. Zara ran over and pulled him by the hand from the edge of the circle with a mischievous flick of her russet tail, her green eyes sparkling. You can't just stand there looking princely all night, she teased, voice light and playful. This is a fox festival. We dance, eat, and steal things we're not supposed to. He laughed, letting her pull him away. Steal things? Should I be worried for my gold? She spun to face him, walking backward without missing a step, ribbon still in one hand. Oh, not coin. Something far more valuable. Her gaze dropped to the silver fox pin on his cloak. Like this pretty little trinket. Before he could react, her fingers darted out, quick as a fox snatching a hen, and unclasped the pin with practiced ease. She held it up between them, the silver catching firelight. Mine now, she declared. If you want it back, you'll have to catch me. And she turned and bolted, laughing, red hair streaming behind her, tail high. As his cloak fell to the ground, he gave chase without thinking. His heart was racing. He darted between dancers, ducked under a low-hanging lantern, and flashed him a daring glance over her shoulder. Come on, Your Highness, she called. Show me those long legs are good for something. He lunged, nearly caught her sleeve, and she squeaked, spun away, the ribbon snapping over her head. Around the bonfire, she led them, both, past tables of startled guests who cheered them on until they reached the edge of the berry orchard. She slowed just enough for him to close the distance. He reached for the pin. She held it high. One more step, she warned, and I disappear into the woods with your family crest forever. He stepped forward. I suppose I'll just have to follow you into the dark. Maybe that's the idea, she whispered. And under the first stars of evening, the chase paused. Two breathless teenagers, close enough to feel each other's warmth, the silver fox pin glinting. He lunged forward. His hand brushed her cheek. He leaned in, and his heart pounding like a fool to steal a kiss. She didn't pull away. Her lips met his for one soft moment. It was quick and chaste, but it jolted every nerve in his body. Then with a delighted giggle, she darted back toward the torchlit square. He chased her, laughing. The music and cheers grew louder as they burst back into the festival light. She reached the table first, breathless and flushed, spun to face him. He caught up with her, and she said, I give up. The prince is too fast for this poor fox girl. His hand settled on her waist to steady them both. Zara's breath caught. She looked up with shining eyes and giggled with her hands over her mouth. Here, she whispered, pressing the silver pin into his palm. Take it, Your Highness. The music seemed to swell on cue as King Arlen and Lord Reynard raised their frothy mugs to Sterling across the table, eyes twinkling with satisfaction.